Hey everyone, in this video I'll be ranking all the shells in Mortal Shell 2 on a tier list from best to worst. I'll be talking about bossing, general mobbing, as well as the best builds for all these characters, and how they fare in New Game Plus. After platinuming the game, there are some that are a little bit misunderstood, which we'll be breaking down all in this video, and there's some that are just strong all the way through. And I'll also talk about like the best weapon selections and infusements for each of these shells as well. But let's address the skeleton in the room. Tiel is just the best shell by far due to the amount of invincibility frames that he gets and just general crazy boost to crit damage. And Tiel also has two different ways to build. You can use poison, which can also heal himself, create poison clouds, and detonate them for a ton of damage. My preferred way of playing is boosting up his crit chance, and you can get an automatic critical hit after you use your Shadow Strike, which is something you use often because it gives you insane iframes. And on top of that, you increase the damage that he deals from attacking from behind, which is super easy because when you dash, you can leave behind a Shadow Clone, which basically just turns the enemies around. So yeah, it's no contest. He is insane, but we will first start off with Eredrim. This is the character that I think is one of the most like beginner friendlies. Like if you don't play a whole lot of Souls-like games, Eredrim's just very tanky and also has a very useful skill with his shoulder bash there, which does break damage, allowing you to break their posture. His whole shtick is he's able to break posture and get riposte off. However, riposte don't do a whole lot of damage. However, there are ability skills that you can use in between getting a posture break that still allow you to do the full critical hit attack. So it can be nice for the openings like that. But he also has the Ethereal Diapason here, which is great for dealing break damage to large groups of enemies. So he's not just good at bossing with shoulder break, but he's also good at general mobbing. The Executioner though, this is where things get interesting. He will automatically kill enemies that are on low health and gain Slaughterer stacks by performing a riposte there. The only downside is, even at max stacks of Slaughterer, that only gives you a 10% increase the amount of health that the enemies have to have for you to trigger this. It's not something you'll get often, but it is a very satisfying move, and you just explode them into blood, which is actually pretty cool. But when it comes to Eredrim, he's really wanting to be built around Frost. He has immunity to it, so he's great against one of the bosses in this game that deals Frost damage, but he also can deal 200% damage to frozen enemies. The big issue here, I've grinded out all max Tire Stones here. The only way to get Frost on your main hand weapon is to use the Great Martyr's Blade. The big problem with this is, and if you like this weapon, that's fine. The problem is you can't animation cancel any of these moves. So if you go and do this long animation attack, you're locked into it. So this is really tough when there's weapons like the Axe and Dagger, the Axe Katana here, which lets you just do an attack and dodge right out of it. It does have a decent like running heavy. So if you are into like doing that, you get iframes through the running heavy. That'd be the most redeeming property of this, but I will be doing a separate tier list on the weapons. It's just his entire frozen build does rely on you using this weapon. So if you do end up using that, you're going to be using that running heavy attack often because it is his best attack, and praying that you get the freeze off. Freezes are really good though for that 200% increase to the damage. Now you can also use the Frost Shard Stone here to be able to apply this to the Triarch Repeater. The big problem is the Triarch Repeater does not have an ability stone, so this does limit you because there's some that are very useful like the Fusillade Stone. But yeah, hypothetically, you can do a Frost build with this weapon here, so you charge it up, shoot at targets till they are frozen, and then you can go in for that extra damage that you have on them, which is nice if you're using a weapon like the Iconoclast here, which can get Bleed, which is just insane high damage. So he does have ways around it, but that is a core principle of Eredrim's kit. So yeah, I just want to talk about the apathy there because it is a very useful skill. However, being limited to just that one sword is unfortunate, but he does have some really nice skills here. Shoulder bash is like the bread and butter for his kit here. I like to take 2 points here to reduce resolve costs to let you spam it a little bit more. And he can also apply weak. This is huge because the shoulder bash is going to be something you use often on enemies. Applying 10 weak stats is huge. They do less damage to you, making Eredrim even more tanky. He can also apply stagger damage. That's kind of his whole thing, is getting staggers off. His Ethereal Diapason here can also give additional break damage. I don't fully love that, but it can give you fragile stacks. And that's what makes Tiel so good, is the extra damage you get from weapon attacks on fragile is massive. But he also has some other abilities here which give like trauma, which gives break damage over time. He really is about just breaking targets. But there's also the Massacre here, which will give you more Slaughterer stacks, and you can actually make it so Slaughterer will give you damage reduction. The big problem with this, though, is that you're going to die to a boss and lose all of that. So it does lose its effectiveness. You can have it so that when you rest, you're going to keep 25% of your stacks are only going to get removed, so you can keep a lot more of it, but that still is a little bit tricky to use. Carnage is fun with the bloody explosions. It's like the bloody mess if you played Fallout. Frost, again, covered that. He can gain resolve when he uses his heals here, which is kind of nice, and it gives him a chance to fully recover his resolve, which is nice. This just gives him a lot of extra freedom. This one's tough. Stasis is such a good ability, but you're best off putting it on the Axatana weapon. Stasis slows the enemies down, and if you can get a lot of stacks on, it just makes him so much better because you can make it so that he weakens enemies and slows them with his kit. This does require the Ethereal Diapason here to be able to break a target, but my favorite here, it just makes parries better. The Seal Affinity will also increase your riposte damage, but again, we want to use riposte so that we can use some of our other abilities or get some heavy attacks in. But general weapons, I really like the Iconoclast, Axe, and Dagger. These weapons with the Blood Curse are amazing. You can use the Axatana with Stasis or Lightning, and it works amazing. The Veteran's Battle Axe is another good one. You can kind of use Curse on it even, but the Black Needle, another solid weapon, and even Clockwork Scythe with the Blood Curse works well for him. The general flow to his combat, though, you typically want to try to use your Shoulder Bash as much as possible because that's going to give you the biggest return on investment. You also have your Ethereal Diapason here, which you can just bash. It's better when it's fully upgraded because you can get those breaks off and then give yourself some, it gives the enemies a stasis here. But his general flow to combat is to get into a position where you can just Shoulder Bash an enemy, which will give you that full on break, which is amazing. So it's great for, I love using Blood Curse on him, so like the Axe and Dagger, because he's going to break targets often, so you can use that to your advantage and get more of the status applied to enemies. But with Eredrim, you really just want to spam your abilities here. You have a lot of health, so you're quite tanky, and we can apply 10 stacks of the weak on enemies again, so that we take less damage. These things still hit like a truck there. My health is dropping quite quickly, but yeah, Eredrim honestly feels like John Mortal Shell to me, so he is great for all types of players. I do got to throw him up in the S tier though. Tanky has great abilities. Shoulder Check's great against bosses. Ethereal Diapason's great against mobbing, so he has an answer for every problem, despite his executioner not always being the most reliable thing to work with. We will talk about Genessa next, who is very similar in that regard, but for different reasons. So yeah, honestly, Eredrim is a very solid character. It'd be high A tier to S tier. I'm going to put him in the S because if you're struggling with a boss, switch to Eredrim and you'll have a good time. He can also be called Eredrip because he has some really cool outfits. But next up we have Genessa. Now she does get some cool new story content in this game. I guess all of the characters really do when they talk to specific characters, but she more so than others. Genessa's from the first game as well if you haven't played, but she has two distinct forms with her duality here. So the faithful doubles will spawn whenever you cast them in with your lantern there. They have terrible tracking. However, this will potentially be updated in the future, so just bear with that. The nice thing about the faithful doubles though, they're pretty cheap to summon. They can attack multiple times if you upgrade them. And most important is distraction. I think this is one of the best skills that makes Genessa really good against bosses, is that they can have an 80% chance to be attacked by enemies. They draw aggro and they don't cost a lot to summon in. They also can make it so they apply 15 stasis stacks, which will slow the bosses and enemies down, which is massive because certain bosses have huge hitboxes. So you can just throw them into those and you'll get the boss debuffed. But yeah, as mentioned, we can have 5 of them. They just have terrible tracking, as you see right there. So that is the big problem with them. Depending on the weapon they use, you can also have them do your weapon attacks here, but they're more so just for drawing aggro away from you. You see there, he attacked them and he got his stasis, which makes him look electrified. If you give them multiple attacks, they do track a little bit better, but they're not that great at it. And your weapon choice does matter when it comes to these. I like to use the Axe and Dagger with her. The Iconoclast is just good on everybody. And the Black Needle or Axatana, those would be the top 4 weapons for me. In my opinion, they're just some of the best in the game. Axatana can come with stasis, although we do have that on the skills. So if you focus more on her stray setup and not her faithful double setup, you can do this. But it'd be Axe and Dagger probably for the best weapon. So this whole left-hand side of the tier tree or skill tree here is all about the faithful doubles. You can actually have them apply, do your weapon ability, which is amazing. So the only downside is the first 2 tiers of this are worth it. Like 1 point for 15%, that's amazing. Another point for another 5% to bring it up to 20, that's all right. But 3 points to bring it from 20 to 22, I don't think is worth it. But it's still an amazing choice. And even at a single point, 15% chance, I found it proccing pretty often. So the faithful doubles are amazing. Now, sure, Stray setup here is interesting too, because you have to be in her other form. However, she has the alteration skill here, which will make it basically you'd lose your life. It's kind of weird and it's a tough play style. However, she does have the Mirage here. And what makes Mirage nice is that it can protect you from 2 fatal blows. Downside to this, it is also buggy. So my ranking on her, I have to take off points because not only is her faithful doubled, like she has 2 builds, faithful doubles, buggy, and this is also buggy. You do have to have enough health to survive that hit, and it says a single fatal blow, so it's not actually true in how it works, unfortunately. But you can play like this if you wanted to play a little bit risky. She gets a better dodge when she's in this form too. But the thing with the strays is that you can actually buff up their damage quite a bit. So you can have this give you 2 strays whenever you summon them in. You can then make them deal upwards of 200% range damage. This is where it gets crazy. It is really expensive to put points into instigation, which is about faithful doubles and stray doubles at the bottom. Getting that fragile stacks is really nice. It's a massive boost for DPS, and that's why Tiel, again, is so good. But if you're going to use these stray doubles, the nail shot just makes this really good, because what you'll end up doing is whenever you get into a fight here, we're going to summon in our extra strays here. The only problem again is they're supposed to take hits for us and they don't always. But what we would do is get into a position where we can use our ranged attack there, because we're getting additional shots off. So yeah, it can just absolutely melt targets, because we're just attacking so much harder. They get a huge damage buff. We are dealing damage ourselves, and the stray doubles get a 200% damage increase, and they also you get to summon in 2 of them. So it becomes even crazier when they get a chance to apply your weapon infusions. So you can have Blood Curse go crazy on them, or even on your ranged weapons as well. I think the best setup if you're going to use this is to go all in on ranged attacks and just focus mostly on blasting away and applying statuses that way. But you can also go and build around both of these. And that's where I think this kit comes together nicely, because whenever Genessa's health goes down to 0, you can make it summon in faithful doubles, so that when you go into your other form, you can then pop your stray and have those faithfuls still taking aggro, still applying stasis, and it just has nice harmony together. And the combat flow would be to summon them in just like this, and then we can go in and start doing our attacks here as well. So yeah, the faithful doubles are mostly used as a defensive measure, because you saw there, they draw the aggro of everyone in here. They all got debuffs so that we can then do a bit of extra attacks off without getting hit, or still getting hit. But yeah, you can spam them. You get 5 of them. They don't cost a whole lot, and you see it there. They are just drawing away the aggro of everybody. The big problems with this kit, though, as mentioned, is their tracking is absolutely dog shit. So you see it there. They're attacking the tree. It's crazy how bad that is. But when it does work, it's nice, and you will get comfortable with a certain range that you can summon these in at and have it be effective. But you really want to balance around both of these skills, and this is what makes her so good. Is she's great for pulling. You can actually pull enemies off of cliffs. You can drag them away if you need to go run away. You can just pop them. So she's great against bosses. The big downside is her health bar, as you probably noticed, compared to Eredrim, is a lot smaller. So she will get one shot, and that is unfortunate. But as you see there, where is she going? Yeah, that does not make any sense. They have the weirdest tracking in the entire game. Oh, Jesus, went and attacked him instead of flying off the cliff. That is so weird. Yeah, that's playing Genessa in a nutshell. She's a wild cannon, though. I think she's very good, and I really, really want to put her up in the S tier. I know I'm going to get people upset that I won't. I would say until she gets patched, she's at high A tier, because you're playing RNG with her. She's just not reliable from faithful doubles, and even with her stray doubles being able to block those fatal hits and it doesn't work, if both those things work properly, she's better than Eredrim. She's S tier. But I can't consciously put her up in the S tier when she has a lot of problems with her kit. So if there is a patch that does end up fixing this, she's S tier. But where things currently stand, I do think I have to take that into account, because she isn't as easy as some of the other characters here. And also in New Game Plus, she just gets one tapped so much because of her low health, but very good character. It's just a bit of fall off in the late game compared to some of the others. And also against specific bosses. But this brings us to Proxima. Now, Proxima, I know, is the fan favorite here. I also think she's incredible. She has her biosampler here. She focuses on lightning damage. She looks cool. And she's perhaps an alien. There's actually some pretty cool lore to Proxima, so go talk to the merchant to see how that goes. But as far as her whole skill tree goes, this left-hand side is really where she is shining. It's the biosampler. Being able to reduce this cost by 50% means that you can spam this move. It is a very spammable move. The biosampler is actually pretty crazy, because we got 4 charges of it, and we obviously are charging that up really quickly. If we use something like the duality stone, you can get that charged fast. But you see that stasis that's getting applied to them, that's slowing all the enemies down. So not only are we having them slowed, we're doing lightning damage and area of effect. We're also doing some pretty crazy stagger against a lot of enemies and knocking them down, creating those lightning storms. She becomes pretty insane very fast. And her skills are actually very well focused too. So like, you reduce the cost of it so you can spam 4 of these. I think the most important one though is Seizure here. Getting 20 stasis stacks off that, are you kidding me? That's insane. Stasis again slows enemies down, and it can also apply stagger damage, which is nice. But the big thing is stasis. This is where it really shines in like New Game Plus. Having an ability to do this and still use weapons like the axe and dagger and apply blood curse is fantastic. She can also give additional lightning stacks, which will do damage over time, and it chains around to multiple enemies. And another really useful one is Discharge. So when you use the Biosampler, it's going to knock back the struck enemy and create a lightning storm that deals damage over time in that area of effect, and it can hit multiple targets. Where that all becomes crazy is because it has a large area of effect, you can hit stasis on multiple enemies. And then if we go with 3 points in Amperion, not to be confused with Jolteon, shock damage and radius are doubled. So that all combines together very well. She's very synergetic, which makes her kit satisfying to use. The grafted armor is more of an RNG thing, like she has a chance of mitigating damage, but you can also have it do a 100% mitigation chance while using the Biosampler, which is obviously nice. It'll take half damage, and you also have some points that are going to give you things like Resolve. So if you wanted to, you can mitigate damage using the Biosampler and have it so that you regain Resolve stacks, and then you can also apply Lightning stacks to the caster. So again, everything here just sort of is really well synergized. You can have it so that you get mitigation on all damage for 8 seconds whenever you get revived here. So that's nice if you go into your Harbinger self and then swap over back to her. She can also farm gold. However, they did nerf this, so that's unfortunate. And then she can also get the Biohunter here, which will increase the damage she deals when she continually keeps attacking the same target, which is a little bit different than like Gragu's, which we'll talk about. But yeah, the Biosampler is just such a really fun ability here. Love being able to grapple and punch them in the face, create these lightning storms, and then they're slowed, they're debuffed. You can see his attacks are just so much better for us to deal with, so we can just go in and you can literally just go like that. It's crazy. So lightning, if you're a fan of that, there are 4 big reasons to play Proxima. So great character, great design. I think this is a fan favorite for good reason. She's strong, and one of the first shells that you get in the game too is really nice. And she also survives New Game Plus. Like, she does have very useful skills, stasis and the lightning damage, which scales pretty decently. She doesn't have the same health and survivability that Eredrim has, unfortunately. She doesn't have the stagger damage either. She does have stasis, which is nice, and lightning, which is again, it's good for like mobbing, but against bosses, Eredrim just ends up being the better choice than Proxima. She's still very good. I want to put her, like, I want to put all of them S tier. There's a lot of really good shells in this game. I might put her above Genessa. This really just depends. Like, if you have good luck, Genessa great. But until, again, they fix her, she'd be S tier. Proxima, it's a really tough one. They both apply stasis very well, but Proxima is tankier and has an easier time applying a stasis, so I'm going to throw her into the A tier. They're both incredible. Next up is Mr. Broken. As I mentioned, Tiel is the best character in the game. There's a lot of reasons for it. He has so many good builds. Like, you can build around poison damage. Poison can restore his health. You can also use the Shadow Clone tier 3 to create poisonous clouds so you heal yourself. He has like infinite sustain technically from dodging. It's crazy. He can also detonate the poison to do some pretty big damage and also create a poisonous cloud heals. He also has a very powerful skill Ambush. Now, this is where things get insane because when you attack an enemy from behind, you get 150% damage, so you're getting a nice boost. Crit chance, huge. Crits in this game do insane damage, and he deals 120% critical hit damage. The best part about this, there's literally a Tar Stone that gives you 100% increased critical hit damage as well. So yeah, he hits hard, but he also has Death Mark here, which gives you your Shadow Strike, an additional critical hit chance, damage, and 10 fragile stacks. Those make targets take more damage from melee attacks. So you hit this, they're weakened, they take more damage, they're vulnerable. You can also have it so that your Shadow Dash, which is a big core principle, this gives him a enhanced dash, can do stagger damage with your dash, and you can have it increase its window, which is important because when we have Night Stride here maxed out, it makes Shadow Clone so much easier to land. So if you get the Shadow Dash off, it creates a Shadow Clone, which will draw enemies aggro. So if you dash behind them, they turn around and they give you your back for easy back shots. He's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But what's greater than that is a single point critical roll. Great show, by the way. If you do a Shadow Strike, the next attack is an automatic critical. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. 3 points of this is also good. So he scales great as you continue to level. I'm trying to keep this around level 50 for all of them. So for most people in their first playthrough. But yeah, 100% increased critical hit damage at max, and you get an automatic crit, and you can spam this move. It's absurd. Again, some of the more frustrating bosses in this game, you can use that invincibility from his, like, you get crazy iframes. You can position yourself at the back very easily. Everything about his kit is just generous to the player because you can spam that move there, his Shadow Sneak, and literally just keep using that to get into proper positioning, and you get a free crit afterwards. You can get to his backside to do that increased damage. So yeah, against some bosses, he's absolutely crazy. And this is what I'm talking about. If you get a posture break off, sometimes it's better to just keep slashing away at the enemy. He's just so powerful. Keep spamming that ability. Like, you get 2 charges of it and you can use it all the time. He's great because this will help out. He also has, like, you can use things like the Shrike Stone against some of these annoying attacks. He's also good for just general mobbing too, because you can go invisible here. They're gonna go for that. You can sneak, surprise, hello. And then if you get the perfect dodge off, you just do, Yeah, you see it there. They're confused. They were swinging at the wrong target. They're going after the Shadow Clone here. Oh, wow. I tried to dodge out of that. I got a Shadow Clone off there. So you turn invisible from that, which is huge. So yeah, you want to get those Shadow Clones to appear often because it's going to pull the aggro of the enemies towards them, which is huge because you get free backside. Like you see there, they're all attacking the Shadow Clones. They can handle up to 5 attacks as well. So huge for mobbing, huge for bossing. You're just going to confuse the enemy, which allows you to just go into the perfect position to get those back attacks off. Yeah, Tiel is absolutely busted. I do have a build on how to use him to his most effectiveness, which I'll have in the pinned comment. So yeah, Tiel the Acolyte is the best character in the game. I can't say any other character can compete with him. Just huge iframes, critical hits do a lot of damage. He has other methods of damage like poison stack detonation. He's got heals, he can heal himself. He does everything in the game, he does it well. The only problem is he has a little bit less health than like Proxima, but that's not even a big problem when you can iframe your way through everything this game has to throw at you. I've had some people tell me that Tiel is the worst character in the game. It can be more wrong. You have to use his abilities to its full potential, which means lingering shadow and the shadow dashes. Now I did spend 20 minutes talking about the first 4, but I thought that these 4 would be the most talked about. These are some of the most popular ones from my videos that I've done thus far. But next we're moving on to Gragu. Gragu is like the undisputed king of mobbing because when you use him, he gets to heal himself a unique method. It is annoying though. He has the revered heart, so every time you take an enemy, you get a possibility to replenish a health. It doesn't do as much heals early on as the health like the Mether's Pulse does. He also has staggering blow, which is really nice for the stagger. You can scale its damage up, but it's not like super high damage. You can also make it cost less, so you can spam 4 of those off. It is nice because you can get fragile and weak on the same thing and also break damage, but for 3 points, getting both of those is incredible because you can spam that a couple times. The enemy takes more damage from your melee attacks, and it gives you a bit of stagger too, which is nice. You can also make it so that when you use your heart, you get 200% increased damage in your melee attack, which is amazing because if it's your last one, you can get hunger, which can give you a 60% crit chance. So you got a 200% damage attack with a huge crit chance. It's pretty absurd to damage, but the only problem is his healing is weird. You have to get on a roll to really use it all. He can also get 15 warp stacks from using the heals, which is cool because 30 is the cap, so you can attack really fast with some attacks. I do have a build that also uses that without this skill here, but he's all about these revered hearts, which is a weird thing to play around because against bosses, you're not going to have that, which does limit him. You still get your heals for when you're Harbinger, but that's really not that amazing. The big thing here, though, is heart work. He's really meant to use Blood Curse, which is the best status in the game, so that's cool at least. But when inflicting Blood Curse, you get a 3% chance to fully restore your revered hearts. That's where he gets his ability in a boss fight, so you can heal back that way. It is a little bit tricky because a 3% chance is not very high, but it's something that you can stack and actually sometimes get. Heavy on the RNG, though, just want to put that out there. His melee attacks also can get a 180% boost against targets you've never killed before. What this means is against bosses, you're going to do that 140% damage. So 140% damage, critical hits when you have no health. That's where his damage really does come from. He can also get full additional gloom. So he's the best for gloom farming, kind of funny enough. And you can get your hearts back at beacons, although I don't find this to be really that good for the cost that it takes. And you can also punch through them, kind of similar to Eredrim and explode targets. He's just unfortunately feeling like a worse version of Eredrim. I like his kit though, don't get me wrong. Like having no revered hearts now and you have to go out and like hunt for them, like using your special punch. The problem with the punch is it's good through the early to mid game. In the late game, it struggles. It really does struggle. And into New Game Plus, I just found myself not wanting to use this. Against the bosses that you wish it would be effective against, it's just not. You can't get the stagger off, but you can punch an enemy completely to death, which is really fun. I like playing as like the Raider in Elden Ring Night Rain. I want him to be similar with the punch, but he just really isn't. The Raider in that game is insane. This is possibly like one of the like weaker classes, but the thing is, he's not bad. He's just a little bit different. So he's great for mobbing. I think that's his specialty. Like if he were to do one thing, he does it very well, and that is mobbing. But when it comes to bossing, the punch is sometimes good against certain bosses. In my experience, not always the best option. You can debuff with the punch, which is really nice. And he does get that crit chance, which is absurdly powerful. So you can just keep spamming the hearts till you're out of them, get that 200% damage buff, and then do a big crit. But as mentioned, again, Tiel just is a way better character for doing things like that. And Tiel is like way better invincibility with the iframes. And he doesn't have the silly heart mechanic here, which I do think is cool, but he really is limited to Blood Curse weapons, so you'd want to use the Axe and Dagger, Iconoclast, or the Clockwork Scythe with him. I like the Clockwork Scythe the most with the warp stacks on him. I think that ends up being the best setup. but he does feel a bit clunky to play in some areas. I am going to put him in the B tier. Like, of all the heroes that we covered thus far, he's kind of the weakest, but he's still not bad. Like, as I said, all the shells in this game can clear the game pretty easily. He's more so mobbing focused, and when you're going against a boss, you have better options with all these characters. Which brings us to Smert. I really like Smert. He has one of the hardest fall-offs in the game, though. His punches are great until you get to the point where you can infinitely increase your weapons. Then, with Smert, you don't want to use his punches as his main attack because they don't keep up, especially in New Game Plus cycles. But for the mid-game, early game, he's really good. Now, it is really fun in a Souls game to just go and beat the crap out of people, but you see there, he does have it, whenever you're in your unarmed form, he has a better dodge here, so it gives him a lot more room to move around with, which is nice. But I almost got one tap there because he does have lower health than Tiel, so that is an obvious problem. But you can see it there, the damage that we're dealing to these trash mobs is not very high. It does stagger though. This is where his like weaknesses come in. You get overwhelmed quickly because it doesn't have a large sword sweep, or like the axe and dagger, you have a like after swing that you have. He just punches you straight in the jaw, which is sometimes not the most powerful. But you want to, with him, use your special ability here to go in overtime and just beat the crap out of them. You build up chaos stacks, which will apply a random status, which is really good. You can also use like your kick to be able to detonate them as well. We got Frost off, which is really nice, and I stepped on a bear trap, lovely. So yeah, he does have some cool abilities here which make him pretty useful in some situations, but the damage fall off is just so high when you get later on in the game. Now, I did post an early and late game build. It will be in the pinned comments because the punches are amazing early game because they just stagger and they do a lot of good damage on bosses. But as you get to the late game, he's better to use weapons and his punches, and only punches whenever you're in your overtime, your miracle here. So yeah, he also has a lot of mechanics around being low on health. Like the faith here, you have to be like 10% or 35% lower health to get faith, which is going to give you additional resolve, which allows you to go back in your punches form, which is good, but it is really hard to get in a flow. He's like a high skill ceiling character, but the only problem with Smert is, again, he just falls off and damage so much. He's probably the most fun in some ways to play because he's got a really fast moveset, great dodges, and a lot of like risk reward style play. He can also make it so that more chaos stacks lets him stay in his ability for longer. He can also, faithful is just a really hard thing to build around because this requires you to be at low health, so I almost just don't recommend using those. But if you like living on the edge, he is pretty solid. The ground punch is another kind of like weird skill which lets you use extra chaos stacks to enemies in a range, but it will take you out of your overdrive, so you'd want to use it near the end. I do think the best weapons for him are the axe katana with stasis, or to use the axe and dagger with the blood curse on it. Those do work really well. Fast-paced weapons, which are like his punches, so that when you go into his punching form, you can just, you know, do your thing with the miracle there. But yeah, it's just high risk, high reward. The deadly revelation, well, it's cool. It's just another hard thing to play around, kind of like Gragu, but he's better than Gragu, honestly. I do think that they're both really fun characters. I'm going to put him into the B tier, though, just because his damage fall off in New Game Plus is pretty terrible. You don't want to use his punches at that point and just use the miracle. And at that point, you got crit damage and things like Eredrim, which will just break targets so easily that it makes Smert a hard pick. But throughout most of the game, he's A tier. I would say he's a very solid pick until you get to like the last few bosses of this game, which I'm not going to spoil, but he does have some struggles there. But if you love Smert, he's really good, and he's like a high skill ceiling character, so if you like playing him late game, it just means you're a good player. But next we got Sariel. He's really cool. Now, the thing with Sariel is he's kind of like Bloodborne style. Whenever you get hit, you get like your health will be able to replenish itself because you get pain instead. This is also kind of similar to like the Withered status in Lords of the Fallen if you play other Souls-likes. But his skill tree is really weird because he has one ability, the Exodus of Thorns, that is absolute dog shit. The problem with this is if there is a ceiling or anything nearby that these can get caught on, you best believe they're going to get caught on it. So his own special skill sucks, but his passive is really good. So basically with this, you shoot those off, they get stuck on a lot of things. They don't do like a very large amount of damage either. They're mostly just so that you can apply some abilities here. But where he really shines is being able to recover his own health, because that just gives him an insane amount of survivability. However, he really shines with curse weapons because they can do some pretty cool stuff. It looks like the actual Black Flame from Elden Ring. This is something you'll have to wait till you get like late on in the game, but you can get affliction here. So damaging a cursed enemy deals damage to all other cursed enemies. This becomes absurd because you can also make curses last for 30 seconds. You got his own unique weapon can apply curse, and there's also a couple weapons that can apply it on melee attacks. So you can curse everybody and make them all take an insane amount of damage. Great for mobbing, but that's not all. He's also good for bossing because when you have no pain, 100% of damage can be taken as pain, and with certain weapons you can just be very tanky with that, and I'll show you guys in a second here. But you can also have it so that you cure more pain and have your ranged weapons cure pain, which makes Reaper really effective. You can also, when you get rid of all your pain, cross trauma, which gives stacks of posture damage over time. And I don't even need to take 1 point into that. It's really effective. You can also have it here, which if you have any self-inflicted damage on cursed, because cursed enemies will try to attack you and they hurt themselves, you can have that cure his pain, which is insane. And then you can also have it so that cursed enemies will do break damage to themselves. But also, when you heal, you can make it recover your pain. So you basically have it so that your heal gets rid of your pain, and that will in turn make it so that you take fatality, and then you recover more of it. It's really synergetic. His best weapons, in my opinion, is using Veteran's Battle Axe with Curse. This can also apply to the Iconoclast, which is great because it's a good weapon too. He can also go with Blood Curse and use things like the Axe and Dagger and Iconoclast, but also my favorite is just using the Clockwork Scythe with Blood Curse on it and a particular Tar Stone, actually two. The Clockwork Shard Stone, this turns it into the Pizza Cutter that you saw at the very start of this video, which he's going to take damage, but you recover your health using this. It's really silly. Or the Scholar's Wormstone, which can apply the warp stacks even faster to this, so you attack and get the 30 stacks very quickly. But to show what this looks like, we took damage there, so we recovered, as you can see with the Pizza Cutter. Now we're back to full health. So yeah, the Pizza Cutter on him is insane because it just staggers enemies really well, and then you just swing away and you get your skills back, because this has a very large swinging effect, so you can actually hit multiple targets at a time. And yeah, it's really silly because it's just so strong of a weapon. So you get your Pizza Cutter back, and then you go back to going into the Pizza Cutter, because if you take damage, you tank it because you're constantly healing yourself. So it's actually really silly how powerful it is. And this is the weapon that you get when you find him, so it just feels like it fits together very well. Sariel is really, really strong. As long as you don't use his ability and just basically use the weapon abilities from Tar Stones, those are going to give you better mileage on every single weapon in the game. I will do a video tomorrow on the best weapons in this game, because I've already finalized the tier list that I've ranked. But yeah, he's just so insanely good in so many ways. I feel like he's an underrated character because people try to use his like Thorn ability, which just sucks. But if you only use Exodus of Thorns just to apply Curse a little bit quicker, and just ignore that and use Purge so that you can heal yourself, and with the combination of Curse on a ranged weapon, like his own Triarch Repeater can get Curse on it, so you can shoot at targets, curse a bunch of them, and the Triarch Repeater can also use, or Cage Hystrix, my bad, with the Cage Hystrix, you actually get to use 2 different stones, but the Strange Remnant will make a chain between multiple targets, so you can apply Curse on multiple targets, and you're seeing where I'm going with that. So you'd go in here, you'd shoot this off, and you'd get the curse off on a couple targets there. You see they're all cursed. So then they're all going to take 50% damage that we deal to them. So you basically go in, and if you hit them all, they explode. So yeah, he is the curse king of Mortal Shell 2. He's tanky because he can recover his health. He has about the same amount of health as Tiel. If you chain max stacks of frailty with max stacks of Reaper, so your ranged weapons also give you your pain back, and then also use restoration so you can constantly keep triggering this, and then use affliction so you curse enemies and deal extra damage, and as you continue to level, you can make them all last for 30 seconds, and then whenever you cure, you apply trauma on enemies, and just ignore the left hand side of his skill tree. It's just not really that good. Yeah, he's really, really solid. Some people may disagree with this, but I'm going to throw Sariel into the S tier. What makes him so strong is he has insane amounts of sustainability, high damage, and not just damage against mobs, but he's also good against bosses too, because he can keep himself alive so well. If a boss hits you for your damage, you can just pull out the Pizza Cutter and regain your health, or obviously just keep attacking, back off, use your ranged weapon, which also gives you your health back. So he's just absurdly hard to kill. Don't use your Exodus of Thorns that much, and you'll see Sariel is a very good character and definite S tier. I would say he's better in Proxima, and as Genessa currently stands, I think he has a better time. I would say he's like roughly the same strength as Eredrim. Eredrim just has like the Stagger on his side, and also very tanky, whereas his tankiness is from like Lifesteal. So I know some people may disagree with that, but he's really good. Well, that brings us to our final character, Lazlo. Now, I do think that we will get 3 more DLC characters, because if you look at the elevator room, there's 3 chest spots where you get these special skins that I have on all these characters here. But I digress. Lazlo, his Retribution. So he heats up his armor, unleashing a shockwave. Repeated uses will cause overheat, which triggers a shockwave and inflicts burn stacks, but will get rid of his armor. And he gets a 10% damage reduction when his armor's on. This can scale up to 30%. Again, that's really nice. He's like tanky of a character. His dodges, unfortunately, just feel a little bit like, I don't know if it's because he's got a huge hitbox, but they just do not feel that great. Now, Lazlo can heat himself up 6 times when fully maxed out there. He gets a 30% boost to his overall damage here, which is nice. And you can see it actually does some decent stagger damage against boss or enemies here. He's really good at mobbing, kind of similar to Gragu here, where he's got tankiness on his side. Now, what's kind of cool about his kit here is the temperament. So this can make them deal additional damage, but give them a larger radius and also ignite the ground. This goes a step further with Breaker here, which gives break damage on it, which is amazing. But overheated shockwaves have a 15% chance to instantly break enemies. That's where it gets insane because you can go in and do a riposte off of that. So you can also have so that your overheated shockwaves will cure all negative effects, which is pretty useful. He also does have tankiness built into his kit with the ability to get 10% more damage reduction with warmed up stacked up to 3, and then Furnace stacked up to 2 will give you a further 10%. So combined together, that gives you a 30% total. And you also get a 50% chance to survive a fatal blow. I can confirm it's similar to Genessa's and doesn't always work properly. He can also restore his health and resolve whenever he's using his heat meter there as well. And whenever his armor goes on cooldown, you can give him 20 warp stacks, which lets him attack really fast. Although some of his best weapons will have warp stone available. So you could actually just use the axe and dagger on him as well. And you give him full burn immunity, which is nice, and receive 5 warp stacks when you're afflicted with a burn, which gives you, again, a faster attack. There's actually a few different ways to build around him. Oh geez, I got launched up in the air. I love when this happens. Yeah, game is a little bit buggy, but he's got his armor here, which you can just heat away like that. And it's great for general groups of enemies. You can see there, we hit a large group here. He does feel a little bit slower to play than the other characters, so if you're used to like Tiel or Eredrim who can like dash around and do crazy stuff, he does struggle in that regard, so you want to be parrying a bit more as him, I find. But he is pretty strong. He can do reductions to the damage he's going to take, which is nice. Breaking off his armor, though, does leave that big fire there, and it has that chance of breaking enemies. And you can bait enemies to walk into the fire and just die from it, which is kind of nice. So that has a bit of a benefit, but I do feel like he's a little bit clunkier to play, and you got to look at him too. So he does have some nice abilities here, but I find that throughout the game, he's just not as good, I would say, as Smert in a lot of situations. Smert's damage, like if you're going into New Game Plus, he's better. I put him at the top of the B tier, but if you're doing like regular games, Smert just has a really strong ability throughout most of the game, and then he kind of falls off a little bit later on, and then we put him up a little bit higher. But yeah, Tiel, in my opinion, is the best character in this game by far, and if you're skipping ahead to watch this section, I recommend that you watch all the previous sections, and just, there's a lot of context into why this is this way. Tiel's just so good with the invincibility, high damage, critical hits. He's got iframes for days. He's the best character by far. Play him and you will see. Eredrim, though, great for a lot of people. He's just very tanky. His shoulder checks are great for break damage. It gives them the enemy's weak stack, so they deal less damage to him. He's got a huge health bar. A very forgiving character to play, although his frost setup is just very clunky to play, unfortunately. You don't have to use a frost, so you can go all in on blood curse or lightning. And Sariel, honestly, a very underrated character. He's just so survivable. Again, I talked about it in this section for him. The curse and stacking that on all enemies is amazing. Everything about his kit is useful. Proxima and Genessa are also very good. A and S tier are just very powerful. A tier, you could make an argument for them going up to S tier. And again, as mentioned, Genessa could be S tier if her abilities worked a little bit more properly. But until that is fixed, I am going to set it right here. But if you're watching from the future and she does have better tracking on that, and there's been an update to it, she would go into the S tier. She's great. It's just a bit of a wild card right now with it not being reliable. And sometimes against bosses, just running completely in the opposite direction. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed. I hope you guys all have an incredible day, and we'll catch you in the next video. And you can also check out the pinned comment for all the builds for all these characters.